Hello. The story I want to tell you today takes place in Saitama Prefecture, Japan. Saitama is a prefecture located in the southeast of Japan, within the greater Tokyo metropolitan area. In the southeastern part of Saitama Prefecture, there is a city called Misato, about 20 kilometers from Tokyo, with an area of 30,000 square kilometers, and today's story unfolds there. The main character of this story is Junko Furuta, born on January 18, 1971. At the time this story happened, she was only 17 years old and a student at Yashio Minami High School in Saitama Prefecture. She had a cheerful personality and a sweet appearance, and she was loved by many students at the school. Her father was a business director at a canning factory, and her mother was a homemaker. Besides her parents, she also had an older brother and a younger brother. The family's financial situation was not well off. Her father carried most of the economic burden. To lessen her father's load, Junko decided she would start working after graduating from high school. Outside of school hours, she worked part-time as a sales clerk in a home goods store, or did packaging work at a plastic factory to help support her family. This is Tracking Crime. Please subscribe so I can share more scary cases with you. Comment below where you are and what time it is. It helps me feel like I'm not alone. And now, let's see what happens next. As she approached graduation, she applied for an interview at a company and successfully passed the screening process. After finishing high school, she would be able to join the company and begin working. It felt like a new chapter in her life was about to begin. However, no one could have imagined that one day, on her way home from her part-time job, she would encounter a monster. And everything that happened afterward would leave anyone who heard about it feeling heartbroken. So what exactly happened that day? Next, we will turn back time to November 25th, 1988. November 25th, 1988 was a pleasant Friday. As usual after school, Junko went to her part-time job at a plastic factory. At 20:20, Junko finished her shift and prepared to head home. She picked up her things and began riding her bicycle toward her house. The road had only a few streetlights and there were almost no pedestrians. Suddenly, a strange man on a motorcycle came up from behind and kicked her hard, causing both her and the bike to fall to the ground. Before she could react, the man on the motorcycle quickly rode away. Just as she was trying to stand up, a young man came over to help her and said that the man earlier was someone from the underground world, and he had been following her. He added that the man might come back to harm her. "It's very dangerous. I can escort you home so you'll be safe," he said. Junko had just fallen and was still dizzy. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt that the young man standing before her seemed like a good person. So she pushed her bicycle along and limped behind him. After walking for a while, noticing that the area was deserted and no one was around, he stopped and told her that he too was a member of a local gang, and that the man on the motorcycle earlier was his accomplice. His name was Hiroshi Miyano, 18 years old, and he was currently staying home, not attending school. He then attacked her and said, "If you spend the night with me, I'll let you go. If not, you will die." In the end, terrified, Junko agreed to his demand. At 21:50, Hiroshi took her to a nearby hotel and assaulted her. However, afterward, he did not keep his promise to let her go home. Instead, a more sinister idea formed. He arranged for 3 other accomplices to gather at a park. These 3 were Joe Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe. Yasushi was the same person who had kicked Junko off her bicycle. At 3 a.m., the 3 young men waited in a car at the park. Not long after, Hiroshi brought Junko to meet them. The 4 searched her school bag and found a diary that contained her home address. They threatened to go to her house and kill her entire family if she dared to escape. Junko was terrified, believing they might really do it. So she had no choice but to obey them. After discussing among themselves, the group of 4 decided to take her to Shinji's home. His house was located in Adachi Ward, Adachi area, Tokyo. It was a 2-story house with an electric gate outside. Shinji often snuck friends in using the intercom, Junko's parents did not notice anything unusual. They assumed she was staying at a friend's house, so they did not report her missing to the police. 2 days later, on November 28th, the four men grew bored and wanted something more entertaining. They called 2 more friends to the house to join in. Because the noise from the room became too loud, it caught the attention of Shinji's father, who had just returned from a trip. When questioned, Shinji said that Junko was his new girlfriend and asked his father not to disturb them. After that, all 6 men assaulted her together. Terrified, Junko endured it quietly, which made the group of 6 feel very satisfied. A few days later, Junko was repeatedly used by them as entertainment. One day, when Shinji's mother went up to the 2nd floor to clean the room, she accidentally saw Junko there. She already knew her son had brought a girl home before, but she did not expect the girl to still be there, so she told Junko to go home quickly. However, a few days later, she still saw Junko on the 2nd floor and again told her to go home. After that, she simply ignored the situation and did not question her son. At that time, it was December, and the weather outside was extremely cold. The 4 young men often gathered at Shinji's house to amuse themselves. They forced Junko to take off her clothes and dance to music. They even made her stand naked on the balcony of the 2nd floor. This caused her to faint from the cold. In the days that followed, Junko continued to endure their excessive and indescribable demands. To prevent her parents from calling the police, Hiroshi occasionally forced Junko to call home, so her parents would not worry. Because she seemed obedient and compliant, they threatened her even more. When they got tired, one of the 4 would stay behind to look after her. The others would go out to buy food and then return to continue tormenting her. When they came back, Hiroshi even used a camcorder to record these moments and forced Junko to watch the footage. One day, Hiroshi lied to her, saying a family member of hers had suddenly died in a traffic accident. Seeing how sad she looked, he took pleasure in it and said he was only joking. The group continued using similar cruel remarks to torment her emotionally. During that time, one member of the group considered helping her escape, but he was discovered and warned by the others. After that, they continued their abuse as before. By this point, Junko could no longer endure the pain and cried out for help. Shinji's parents, who were downstairs, heard the noise but did not intervene because they were afraid of the young men. On December 7, 1988, the 13th day of her captivity, the 6 men stayed up late and fell asleep. During the previous days, Junko had suffered tremendous mental and physical torture, but she still managed to gather her strength, put on clothes, run down to the 1st floor, find the telephone, and call the police. But before she could fully explain the situation, Hiroshi was already behind her. He was enraged by what she had done. He immediately hung up the phone and dragged her back to the 2nd floor. Then he called the operator and claimed that the previous call had only been a joke made by his friends. Next, he ran upstairs, poured gasoline on her legs, and set them on fire as punishment. As a result, her legs were burned and she could no longer walk. Seeing this, the others followed his actions and burned other parts of her body. The wounds on Junko's body began to fester and emit a foul smell because they were never treated. Shinji's parents realized something was very wrong in the house, but out of fear of angering the young men, they chose to ignore it. Shinji's older brother also lived on the 2nd floor and knew what was happening to Junko. Out of fear, he did not dare report anything to the police. He only occasionally brought her milk, bread, or other food. Junko was unable to move due to severe burns in many areas. In the end, she had to lie on the floor and could only relieve herself where she lay. Some members of the group treated the room as their hangout, and what Junko did made them extremely irritated. They even forced her to eat her own feces. Gradually, the amount of food they gave her became less and less, sometimes only a carton of milk or a few pieces of bread a day. and sometimes nothing at all. Hiroshi even beat her for urinating on the floor, claiming she made his feet dirty. They repeatedly struck her in the face, causing severe swelling and disfigurement. They took pleasure in it. At that point, Junko was in a near-death state. To them, she was nothing more than an object to satisfy their desires. But now she was dirty, foul-smelling, and unable to meet their demands. However, they still refused to let her go because releasing her meant they would be arrested by the police. Soon after, an even more malicious idea formed in their minds. On the 41st day of captivity, at 6:30 a.m., Hiroshi arrived at Shinji's house with an angry expression. He had lost more than 100,000 Japanese yen playing mahjong the night before, and he was frustrated. When he saw Junko lying on the filthy, foul-smelling floor, he again vented his anger on her. By then, Junko's consciousness was fading. She could barely make a sound. Her feet were rotting and could no longer move, so they could only be manipulated by others. After attacking her, Hiroshi still did not feel satisfied. He then picked up a barbell weight attached to a metal rod weighing 1.7 kilograms. They repeatedly used the iron weight to strike her abdomen for 2 hours. The next morning, January 5th, they discovered that Junko had died. They had already prepared for such a situation. Hiroshi went to a truck from his former workplace and stole some yellow sand, cement, and bricks from a nearby construction materials shop. He also stole a metal drum from a work site, measuring 60 centimeters in diameter and 90 centimeters in height. First, they wrapped Junko's body in a blanket and placed her into a suitcase. Then, they drove to an empty lot and transferred her body into the metal drum. Hiroshi was very superstitious. He believed that Junko would turn into a ghost and come back to take revenge on him. For this reason, he placed a videotape inside the drum, a Japanese TV drama called Dragonfly. It was Junko's favorite show, and during her captivity, she often talked about it. After that, the group mixed the cement and filled the drum to the top, sealing it with tape. At 20 sows, they drove toward Tokyo Bay, intending to dump the drum into the sea. But due to traffic congestion and a police checkpoint approaching, they changed course and instead went to Wakasu Seaside Park near Tokyo Bay. There, they discarded the drum onto a grassy roadside area to destroy the evidence. They thoroughly cleaned the vehicle and returned to Shinji's house, where they destroyed everything related to Junko. On January 23, 1989, 18 days after Junko's death, Hiroshi and Ogura were arrested by police for having assaulted another girl. At first, they believed the police had already found Junko's body, so they gave some details about her. Only later did they learn they were actually being arrested for a separate crime. Both eventually confessed to the charges under investigation and were placed in a juvenile detention facility in Nerima Ward, Tokyo. Based on their statements, police became suspicious that they might be involved in other crimes as well. They proceeded to search both suspects' residences. On March 29, 1989, 2 months after Junko's death, 2 investigators went to Hiroshi's house and found several pieces of women's underwear. This led them to believe he was connected to additional cases. Immediately afterward, police conducted separate interrogations of Hiroshi and Ogura. During the interrogation, Hiroshi assumed that Ogura had already told the police about Junko's death, so he directly confessed and recounted the entire story. The next day, March 30, 1989, the case was officially opened for investigation. Following the location Hiroshi provided, police found a metal drum containing Junko's remains. Her body was in an advanced state of decomposition and was unrecognizable. Police ultimately confirmed her identity through fingerprint comparison. Forensic examination revealed that her face was deformed, most of her teeth were broken, her chest contained multiple metal pins, her intestinal wall had ruptured, her hair had been torn out leaving only the scalp, and her uterus had been destroyed by foreign objects. Pieces of glass were also found inside her. She had been pregnant. Using the location of the phone call Junko had made to her parents, police traced it to Shinji's house and successfully arrested the group of young men, including Shinji's older brother. In total, 7 individuals, Japanese, were prosecuted. Among the 4 original perpetrators, Hiroshi was identified as the primary offender. All of them were between 16 and 18 years old. This was considered an extremely severe case of juvenile crime. Police then conducted deeper background investigations on each individual. They discovered that Hiroshi, 18 years old, came from a relatively well-off family. His father was a securities company director, and his mother was a piano teacher. Because his parents were busy with work, he had been raised by his grandmother from a young age. He did not live with his parents until he graduated from elementary school. Having lacked parental care for so long, his relationship with them was strained. To compensate, his parents often overlooked his mistakes and tried their best to satisfy his material and financial demands. During high school, he entered the school's judo program and learned various combat skills, which he frequently used to bully his classmates. In March 1988, Hiroshi dropped out of high school and became involved with delinquent groups in society. When his family saw this, they ordered him to stay away from such people and forced him to work at a construction materials company. He completely refused to cooperate. During a prolonged argument, he even struck his mother. His father, upon discovering this, immediately kicked him out of the house. Afterward, Hiroshi gathered a group of school dropouts and juvenile offenders and formed an organization called the Radical Youth Association. He became the leader of the gang and lived by extortion and robbery. The suspect, Joe Ogura, 17 years old, was a junior member under Hiroshi. His father was a transport worker and his mother worked at a hotel. His parents divorced when he was in 3rd grade, after which he lived with his mother. In high school, he met Hiroshi, quickly dropped out, and joined the organization Hiroshi had formed. The suspect, Shinji Minato, 16 years old, had a father who was the administrative director of a hospital and a mother who was a nurse at home. His parents fought constantly. After each argument, his father would take out his anger on Shinji and his older brother. Growing up in such an environment caused Shinji to become increasingly irritable and prone to attacking his classmates. One day, Shinji's brother had his motorcycle stolen. To retrieve it, Shinji asked Hiroshi for help. Over time, the two became close friends. Sometimes, to avoid being beaten by his father, Shinji invited Hiroshi's group over. Shinji's father disliked them, but did not dare confront them. Eventually, he stopped trying to discipline Shinji altogether. His mother, helpless in the situation, also stopped intervening. Yasushi Watanabe, 17 years old, had parents who divorced when he was young. He lived with his mother and older sister. His mother worked at a beauty salon and was often busy. When Yasushi entered middle school, Hiroshi began pursuing Yasushi's sister, which led to their acquaintance. Given the severity of their actions, they should have been sentenced under adult standards. This was a major and extremely repulsive crime, unprecedented in Japan's history. The defendant's motive was hatred toward the victim. She endured abuse beyond anything a normal person could imagine. In court, the 4 defendants did confess, but their defense lawyers argued that they were minors and that they had no intent to kill Junko. They claimed the group merely continued attacking her and did not deliberately attempt to take her life. On May 21, 1990, after 10 months of trial, the case concluded. Hiroshi was sentenced to 17 years in prison, Ogura received 5 to 10 years, Shinji received 4 to 6 years, and Yasushi received 3 to 4 years. The remaining 3 accomplices among the 7 were also sent to juvenile correctional facilities. The prosecution later refused to accept the sentences, arguing that they were far too light. They then appealed to the Tokyo High Court. On July 12, 1990, 1 year later, the Tokyo High Court issued its ruling. Except for Ogura, whose sentence remained unchanged, The sentences of the other 3 were increased. Hiroshi received 20 years in prison, Shinji received 5 9 years, and Yasushi received 5 7 years. However, the prosecution was still dissatisfied. The Tokyo High Court explained that under Japanese law at the time, all offenders were minors and therefore eligible for leniency. After sentencing, the parents of the 4 juvenile defendants hoped that they and their children would be allowed to kneel and apologize to Junko's family, asking for a chance at rehabilitation. But their request was rejected. By civil court order, Hiroshi's mother sold their house and paid 50 million Japanese yen as compensation to Junko's family. Through their lawyer, Ogura's father deposited a large portion of his income into a bank account managed by the attorney. Shinji's parents were aware of the incident but were not criminally charged. Junko's family was dissatisfied and filed a civil lawsuit against Shinji's parents, who were then required to pay compensation for their actions. In 1995, Yasushi, one of the 4, was released after completing his sentence. Because he had frequently been bullied in prison, he developed severe fear of people. After his release, he became withdrawn and rarely left home. In 1997, Shinji was released after serving his sentence. He left Misato with his family, but was unable to find a job. In August 2018, he was arrested again for causing injury and sentenced to 18 months in prison. In 1999, Ogura was released after completing his sentence. After release, he changed his name to Joe Anisaku and married a woman. Soon after, in 2003, he was arrested again for another crime and sentenced to 4 years in prison. In 2009, Hiroshi was paroled and changed his name to Yokoyama Hiroshi. After his release in 2013, he was arrested again for fraud. This case is considered one of the most horrifying juvenile crime cases in Japanese history. The 4 perpetrators committed their crimes while still minors, and even after their release, they reoffended. Before sentencing, they had sworn they would never again commit crimes. After the case became public, Japanese society was engulfed in legal debates about juvenile offenders. Many argued that the minimum age of criminal responsibility should be revised. From this case, it is clear that juvenile crime is deeply connected to family upbringing. Had there been timely intervention, such a tragedy might not have occurred. Although many decades have passed, this remains one of the most haunting cases in Japan's criminal history.